I have always struggled to learn new things faster. I am a slow learner who always wants to be a quick learner, and that often makes me ask one question: what is the most effortless way of learning new things and acquiring knowledge rapidly? There is always a debate around the question of what defines a good education system, or what is the best learning or teaching method. Some say a system or a method that inspires innovation and rejects rote learning is the best one. Some say a system that makes you a skilled individual is the best one, and the debate goes on and on with no end in sight. After reading countless articles and several books on this issue, I got my hands on this amazing book by Robert Greene that answered all my questions about effective learning. The best education system is the one that utilizes the natural capacities of the human brain. A system that employs learning and teaching methods that are most suitable for the human brain and makes knowledge acquisition a natural and effortless process. Now, if you say it is hard to create such a system, let me tell you that in the past we already had such a system. A system that produced some of the most skillful artisans of history, who achieved great artistic feats by erecting the great Gothic cathedrals of Europe without blueprints or books, and by creating great works of art. Artists such as Leonardo da Vinci. What exactly was this system and how did it work? Let's go 800 years back into the past to understand that. Hi guys, I am Prateek and you are watching Eclectic. Here we talk about our past, present and future. And today let's explore our past to understand how the most natural and effective learning method works. Stick around till the end if you want to understand how to learn things faster and acquire knowledge rapidly and effortlessly. In medieval Europe, every profession had its guild. It was something similar to modern-day labor or trade union. Medieval artisans, merchants and tradesmen formed guilds to promote the interest of their members, protect their rights as well as to provide mutual aid. Every medieval European professional, from builders and painters to blacksmiths, weavers, bakers and butchers, were a part of their respective guilds. Guilds were managed by a core group of seasoned professionals known as guild masters. Their job was to ensure good working conditions, doing quality checks on products, minimizing outside competition, and above all, ensuring that there is enough supply of skilled labor. In the Middle Ages, as business expanded rapidly, guilds faced a shortage of skilled workers. Masters of various crafts could no longer depend on the family members to work in the shop. They needed more hands, more skilled people to handle their business. Now, of course, they could hire people from outside, but the problem was that there were not enough skilled people available at the time, and plus they wanted stability. It wasn't possible to employ someone, then teach him their craft and convince him to work for them for a longer time, because if that was the case, most people would simply leave their jobs after learning everything the master craftsman had to offer. And that's why craftsmen needed someone who would not only learn from them but would also serve them for a particular period. To solve this problem, guilds came up with a solution: the medieval apprenticeship system, in which young people from approximately the ages of 12 to 17 would enter work in a shop, signing a contract that would commit them for the term of 7 years. During this period, an apprentice lived with his master. From that point onwards, the master adopted the role of parent. He taught them his craft and provided them with moral guidance. Apprentices were not usually paid, but did receive their food, lodgings and clothing. After this period of apprenticeship, which usually lasted for 7 years, apprentices had to pass a master test or produce a master work to prove their level of skills. If they successfully passed that test, then they were elevated to the rank of artisans, so that they could open their own shop or travel across the country wherever there was work. It was like getting the license to do business. Medieval architecture and artworks represent the accumulated skills of numerous artisans and engineers of the medieval era, who initially started their journey as an apprentice to some master. Even a great artist like Leonardo da Vinci worked as an apprentice for a noted artist of medieval Florence named Andrea del Verrocchio. Leonardo's apprenticeship started when he was 14 and lasted for more than 5 years. It is the result of his practice under Verrocchio that he could create great artworks later in his life. That was all about how this medieval European system functioned, but the question is, why exactly did it work so efficiently? What was so special about this system that it was able to produce the finest of artists and craftsmen of history? It seems there are 3 primary reasons behind this. Reason number 1. It was based on the natural learning capabilities of humans. In other words, the natural way of learning. How do you learn most things in life? By reading? By attending lectures? No, that's not how you learn. You learn most things by observing and imitating others. As a child, we start learning things by imitating our parents, teachers, and that's the most effective and natural way of learning. In medieval Europe, educational resources such as books and drawings were rarely available. That's why apprentices had to learn the trade and craft by watching their masters and imitating them as closely as possible. They learned everything through imitation and repetition. That brings us to the second reason, the power of deliberate practice. Before the invention of oral or written language, our ancestors had to learn various skills such as hunting, tool making, etc. The only way for them to learn these skills was by watching, imitating, and repeating the task again and again. For thousands of years, we learned things this way, and that's why our brains are highly suited for this natural way of learning. Even mental skills such as computer programming or speaking a foreign language can be learned best through practice and repetition. We learn a foreign language by actually speaking it as much as possible, not by reading books and absorbing theories. The more we speak and practice, the more fluent we become. I, for instance, am good at writing English, but I am not fluent in speaking it. I read a lot of books and write every day, but I live in a place where no one speaks English. So I have no way of having English conversations with people, and hence the bad fluency. But believe me, when it comes to writing, I can hammer out 1,000 meaningful words on a daily basis. Anyway, let's understand what happens to your brain when you start learning something new. When you start learning something new or start practicing a new skill, in the initial stages, something happens neurologically to your brain. A large number of neurons get activated inside the frontal cortex of your brain to help you in the learning process. The frontal cortex even expands in size as you try hard to learn. But once you learn something and practice it again and again repetitively, that skill becomes hardwired and automatic. It gets embedded in your body and nervous system. It becomes tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is knowledge in action. It is intuitive. It is a kind of knowledge that is very hard to explain in words, but it can be demonstrated very easily in practice. If you ask a painter that how does he paint, it would be really difficult for him to explain what he does in words. But if you just ask him to paint, it would take him no time to show you how it's done. That's tacit knowledge. I have started writing since I started my YouTube channel. One of my core strengths in writing these documentaries is that I can pull information from a variety of sources and books about a particular topic and systematically present that information in a well-organized script. The best example of this would be my documentary on the lifestyle of hunter-gatherers, which is about how our hunter-gatherer ancestors lived more happier and harmonious lives than we live today. While writing that script, I pulled ideas and facts from 4 to 5 books and dozens of other online resources. Some of my friends ask me how do I manage to do it, and I can't really explain to them how do I do it. The sentences, paragraphs and connection between ideas and what I read in different books about the same topic just comes crashing to my mind out of nowhere. After 2 years of practice, my skill of organizing information has become automatic in my brain. It is now embedded in my nervous system. Once the particular skill becomes automatic, the neural pathways for that skill are passed on to the other parts of the brain farther down the cortex. And those neurons in the frontal cortex that you needed in the initial stages of learning now get freed up to help you again in learning something new. That's the key secret here. You learn, you practice, you make it automatic, and your brain is yet again free to learn even more skills. That's the most effective, scientifically proven way of learning, and the medieval apprentices exactly followed this process of learning step by step. They started learning by imitating their masters. They practiced a lot until their skill became automatic, and as a result, they acquired tacit knowledge and became effortless in their craft. Now, apart from utilizing the natural learning process and following the principles of deliberate practice, there was another major reason that contributed to the success of medieval artisans. In most of our cases, we don't want to achieve absolute mastery over a particular skill. We just want to be better than most people and have a good combination of useful and relevant skills. But what about the people who want to achieve absolute mastery over a particular skill, who want to be the best in what they do? How much time would it take to achieve absolute mastery over a particular skill? Well, that's the tricky part, which brings us to the third reason. The 10,000 hour rule. Achievement is talent plus preparation. When we look at the lives of successful people, we tend to place more importance on talent and neglect the countless hours of hard work and practice. We think that some individuals are just born talented and they have the right kind of innate abilities to be creative and so on. However, one cannot achieve success by being overly dependent on talent. As I said earlier, achievement is talent plus preparation. Maybe some individuals are born with some innate abilities and they exhibit talent during their childhood days itself. However, in the beginning, talent can give you a head start. But as you grow older, the importance of talent in the achievement equation decreases and the importance of preparation and practice keeps increasing. Now the question is, how much practice is needed to attain mastery over a particular skill? People who have researched this topic repeatedly point out that practicing for 10,000 hours is enough to attain mastery over any skill. American author Malcolm Gladwell popularized this rule when he wrote about it in his book Outliers: The Story of Success. Of course, it also depends on a lot of other factors as well, such as how effectively you practice, how focused you are while practicing, and overall quality of your practice sessions, etc. But in conclusion, talent is not enough. Practice is the difference between good and great. If you add up the time that medieval apprentices ended up working for their masters, it would certainly amount to more than 10,000 hours. If someone works on something for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, he is going to go way beyond the 10,000 hours of practice. For all of the reasons we discussed in this video, the medieval apprenticeship system was able to produce world-class artisans who produced great works of art. And that kind of summarizes everything that I wanted to convey through this video. In all of my videos on creativity, I deliberately emphasize on one point. Creativity is not some mysterious divine force. It can be cultivated by ordinary people like you and me with enough effort and hard work. And that's enough for today. See you in the next video. If you want to learn more about effective ways of practicing a skill, watch Thomas Frank's video, The Secret to Learn Anything Faster.